Hello and welcome to Spotlight Indie's Big Indie Weekend. We are back with our penultimate panel for today, and I am joined by an A-team of awesome authors and indie talent. And I will introduce them all individually in a moment, but first, just to let you know what we're going to be discussing tonight. So, writing can be a lonely business. However, selling a book requires a team with the skills and expertise to market, promote, and publish your work. Where do you find these experts? Well, that is what we are going to discuss tonight. And I've put together a crack panel of experts to help us in this. I'm going to get them all to tell you a little bit about them and their particular expertise. So first up, he loves it when a plan comes together. Introducing DB Rook. DB, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Hello, I'm DB Rook. I am the author of Palace and Crow, and recently, I better show these and I better do it right, and Residuum, my new sci-fi novella. I am also one of the four beardsmen of the book Apocalypse, where we do a bit of RPG, bit of panel talk, and I also review for Fanfi Addict.
Awesome. Next up on our roster of talent tonight, he can fly a chopper through a hurricane and defuse a bomb with his teeth, or at least that's what he told me last time we were on Discord. RJ Bayley, how are you tonight?
Hello, I am all the better for seeing all of your lovely faces. Thank you very much. Before I explain who I am, DB, where are you right now, roughly, geographically?
I'm in Sheffield.
Yeah, me too. I just realised that a second ago. Yeah, I'm at my parents' house in their bedroom, so we're in the same city. I'll speak to you about that later because I'm going to be staying with my parents for a while, so it'd be good to meet up. My name's RJ Bayley, and I am a voice actor, audiobook narrator, which is kind of its own enough distinction there for me to say them as two separate things. I also produce audiobooks, so the editing, proofing, and mastering, not for other people, although that can be discussed if you want, but the stuff, indie authors often, want an all-in package, so I'll often edit it, narrate it, do the whole shebang. I have worked on Holly's amazing Vanguard Chronicles books, which rank as some of my favorite books of all time, and I'm not joking you. That literally puts Holly up there with Richard Matheson and George Orwell, and I'm not joking. I've also narrated. I've actually said some of AJ Rettger's stuff, I believe, at Spotlight once when stuff was sent through, and I offered to help in the first one. And so I'd read out some stuff there, some extracts in order to help promote the books. So I don't know if AJ even knew I did that.
That's awesome.
So yes, that's me. I apologize. I have a rambling brain, so I'm sorry about that, and I'll shut up now.
No, not at all. I will just say as well, AJ, you did send me the excerpt for RJ to read. So you did definitely know about it at some point.
At some point.
Been purged from your memory since then. But that does lead me smoothly into introducing my next guest. If you have a problem and no one else can help, and if you can find him, you could ask AJ Rettger.
Hi, I'm AJ. I don't know if I can fix anyone's problems, as I usually go to Holly for my problems. But yeah, I'm the author of Oathbreaker and the ongoing Ravensward trilogy. Obviously, I try to stay as active as I can in the indie community, help out as I can. I'm happy to lend whatever minimal knowledge I have, but happy to be of service to anyone out there.
Far too modest. And last but not least, he pities the fool who does not employ a proofreader. It's Ed Crocker. Ed, how are you?
I'm very good. I love these intros. Fantastic intros. I think this is the first time I've ever had a proper intro like that. Brilliant. I'm Ed Crocker. I am a fantasy author. My Everlands trilogy first book came out last January, Lightfall. It's fantasy with vampires and werewolves. Second book's coming out next year. But for the purposes of this panel, I am, as Holly alluded to there, I am a book editor, a freelance book editor. So I work with many wonderful indie authors. And that's I'm wearing my editor hat today. So I'm a jack of all trades and master of really none. Cannot emphasize that enough.
So now you've all sat patiently through my 18 puns. There will be more of those throughout this panel, so I'll apologise for those as we go. I want to kick off the discussion talking a little bit about what we would consider the A team when it comes to books, because the actual writing experience is something that, as the writers of us know, we have to do alone. You know, as much as we'd like to, you can't get other people to write your books for you unless you're very rich, and that's a whole different story. But when you have a finished manuscript and you want to get it out into the world, it's time to start building that support team around you, that network that you need to take it from a finished manuscript to a published item. So we're talking editors, proofreaders, beta readers, cover artists. I'm going to throw it out to anyone to answer first. What is your go-to team? Who are the people that you cannot release a book, or should not, we should say, release a book without, at the very least, working within some degree?
No one wants to go first.
I mean, I'm not a writer in this context, so it's up to you three.
Okay. I'll plunge on in.
Go on, Davey.
So for me, I've got a beta reader who is an absolute legend, who kind of goes way beyond beta into proofreading, editing, and everything, and he's amazing. And I've got an editor, and I've got a beta reader who is a classic beta reader, and they're my sort of three immediate. These chapters have been written, are they garbage or not? And they are like, I could not exist without them. They are so amazing. I don't know if I need to be naming names or not.
I mean, you can name names if you want, but there's no pressure at all. I mean, Ed, obviously you come at this from a different perspective because you're here today in your capacity as an editor. So for you, when you work with somebody and you get a manuscript, can you tell a difference really between someone who has worked with that team where they've had beta readers or proofread, maybe sensitivity readers, as opposed to somebody who hasn't had that collective around them?
Yes, absolutely. First off, I'm a slightly useless because I'm not an indie author myself, so I can't tell you the team around me because I have a whole separate traditionally published team. But to answer your question and try and be less useless, yes. So when I get a lot of manuscripts of different kind of stages, really. So sometimes you'll get a manuscript where it's someone's first book. They've not had any beta readers. They're like, I don't really know what I'm doing, understandably. And can you help me out? Sometimes, and some indie authors I work with they're on like their third, fourth, fifth. Some mad guys on his like 20th book. Full respect to that. And they have a whole process. So when it gets to me, I can tell that it's been looked at by the beta readers, and I can tell you can see all the stuff that they put into it. You're like, oh wow, this kind of flows pretty well. Which might then beg the question, well, why would you then hire a developmental editor? Because if anyone's watching going, what's the difference? Quick breakdown. So you can hire a developmental editor, which is kind of all the big stuff, story stuff. And then separately, you can hire a copy editor or a line editor. That's kind of like breaking it down line by line, making your sentences better, word choice, etc., inconsistencies. And then you want your proofread, getting all really bit errors and stuff. And ideally, you want the same editor for all three. But sometimes authors might hire me for different bits. So it might be, I've already had my betas and I don't want a developmental editor. I just want a good line editor and a proofreader. Sometimes I'll get all three. If you're thinking, well, why would you need it developmentally edited if you've got all these betas? You know, DB's talking about his awesome betas and stuff. There is a slight difference in that if you got an editor who's been doing it for years, they can sometimes come at it from a very kind of professional angle where the betas are awesome, but they're kind of just giving you things that they've just seen. They're reading it and they're going, oh, I've noticed this. Whereas an editor will have like a whole kind of framework they used to be looking at. So they'll go down like pace, structure, characters and everything. So sometimes I'll have authors who haven't hired me for developmental, they've hired me for copy editing, line editing, proofreading, and they've gone, I've had loads of betas, and I've said to them, that's great, but I've noticed that they've not spotted a pacing issue. So, do we want to have a chat about if you want to hire me to do that too? So to answer your original question, I get them in very different stages. Sometimes they're very rough, sometimes they're very polished, but I still try and make sure they get their money's worth.
That's a great answer. There's a couple of points there I just want to pull on a little bit, but I want to say hello to a few people in the chat first, because we've got a few people commenting. So we've got Thomas has joined us. Hi, Thomas.
Hi, Thomas.
You. We've also got Alex.
Alex.
Yes, late again, Thomas. I know. Shocking. Mark is back with us again. Hi, Mark. Nice to see you. And finally, Mr. Phil Parker wants to know who Mr. T is. Well, I am Mrs. T, so that's going to have to count for now, I'm afraid, Phil. So just to jump back on, Ed raised a few points there that I want to kind of open up a little bit, talking about things like developmental edits and line edits, copy edits. So for most of us, we will work with an editor. I mean, some people will self-edit. We know that is a thing. But for those of us that do work with editors, do you tend to work with one editor for all your books? Do you tend to mix and match? Does it depend on the book that you're writing? And do you think it's necessary to always have a copy editor, a line editor, a developmental editor, or would you maybe mix and match? Because it could be a little bit confusing for people who are new to indie publishing, because you would probably think, well, an editor is an editor. How different can it be? I'm going to jump over to AJ first and just ask kind of what's your experience of working with editors?
I am a little bit ADHD with my editor selection. Every book I've released has had a different editor or multiple different editors. Is there a reason for that? I'm not really sure. Some of my past books, I didn't like the edits. Once they came out, I found mistakes. And then in terms of like if you need a developmentor, copy editor, proofreader editor, all these different types, I think like Ed touched on, it is about the quality of your beta readers, especially with developmental editors. One of my beta readers, I think he's a professor of English literature. So like he knows pacing, he knows all of the story things. So he's a very top quality beta readers, whereas some of my other beta readers are just like, I'm a fan of fantasy. And they might not know all of those nuanced stuff that a development editor might catch. But, luckily I got a nerd on my brigade that can catch all that stuff for me. But in terms of, I think there might be a benefit to having the same editor, especially if you're doing a series. That way they know what's going on. They have a little bit, knowledge on the characters and the story. Whereas like I ran into that with my latest book, Season of Vengeance, where I used a different editor. And she was like, this seems like way out of left field. And I had to tell her, nope, that's from like last book. Don't worry about that. It's all good. So it feels bad that you're dismissing feedback like that again, but that's, I think, the risk you take. So if you can find a good editor that does amazing work, I would say hold on to them as best you can and don't do what I do.
I mean, that's just the advice that I give everyone all the time. Just don't do what I do and you'll be fine. DB, what's your thoughts?
So in terms of an actual editor, I've only worked with one guy, and I approached that very carefully because I think it's about collaboration, and I think if you don't have the right relationship, like I say, I've not worked with thousands of editors, so I don't know, but for me, the relationship and the collaboration in what you're editing and what you're trying to produce, and the idea that trying to get the right balance from your editor, still trying to make your book, not their book, is a real sort of sensitive thing. And I found the right guy and I'm really happy, but I could imagine the wrong editor with the wrong sort of attitude towards what you're trying to produce could be devastating for me.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, absolutely. If people are watching this in the comments and they have questions as we go along, please do feel free to ask them. But I want to move on to a slightly different question now, because I'm aware that for RJ, it's a slightly different process, because with what you do, you come in at the end of the process when the book's already written. Most of the time, it's already published in some iteration. So I want to talk about how we find and build relationships with people who are non-author creatives. So like yourself, RJ, you narrate and you produce audio books. First of all, how do you go about building that relationship with an author who is, you know, let's all be honest, probably quite kind of protective of their work?
So the way I go about it is, okay, so do you want me to first comment on how those relationships are created, or how I manage a relationship with an author who is very understandably protective of their work?
Let's talk a little bit about managing those relationships. I want to jump onto the other point as well, but I think we can kind of bring everyone into this question a little bit.
Sure. So the way I explain it to authors is basically it's like a film, and I usually go with Dracula because everyone knows Dracula, and everyone knows there's been 100 versions of Dracula on the big screen, or you know, something approaching that. Now, I like to say to people, look, this is an adaptation of your work. This is not your work. This is not me literally. I mean, it is your work, but it's not. It's an audiobook adaptation of your work. It's being transformed into another format, just in the same way that Dracula has been transformed from the novel into a film. Very many different films with many different even the most faithful takes on Dracula are going to be different because the format is different. They are not going to be what Bram Stoker imagined the guy, you know, the picture of whoever was playing Jonathan Harker or Mina or what have you. So this is a similar process, and I think it's easier to explain it in terms of films because it's way more in the public consciousness to have that thought process of, well, to be fair, it's a film. It was never going to be exactly like the book. You couldn't do that on film. With an audiobook, you can stay a lot more faithful to the source material. And, you know, I try to be as faithful as possible. But authors, it actually surprises me how many authors don't know what kind of voice their characters have or speech patterns. And I do send a sheet out, like a preparation sheet, a character form, so people can tell me certain things that might not be in the novel or the book I'm adapting. You know, and that's not just about accents, but it's also things such as what their level of education is, you know, what their level of schooling is, things like that, because that's going to inform the performance. And I try to say to them, look, I'll never sound exactly like what's in your head unless you were imagining my voice. And you have to kind of accept that and let it go, but understand that it's not replacing your work. This is not the definitive version of your work. This is an adaptation of your work. Any version of Dracula, say, Francis Ford Coppola's Dracula, the Gary Oldman Dracula, for example. It's not. It's a version of Dracula. It hasn't erased and replaced the novel. The novel still exists. The novel is still the definitive version of that. The movie is a version of it, and it's great to stay as faithful as possible. And that's what I try to explain it as. It's an adaptation. I try to stay as faithful as possible, but it's easier, I think, for authors to kind of let go of the work if they view it in terms of your book still exists. Your book is still the definitive version of this story. What you're doing here is getting me, and I kind of put myself in the role as a director / producer in so much as I'm often casting the voices. And I try to take the author's wishes into account. Sometimes that's not possible. Sometimes I can't do that kind of voice or that kind of accent to a well enough standard. So you've just got to go, look, if this was a movie, I'd be the director / producer and you would be the author. And in a movie kind of situation, no offense to the authors, but they're not at the top of the food chain or, you know, the pecking order, because they're not audio, you know, film experts. They're not audiobook experts. I'm the audiobook expert. They're the writing expert. And so you kind of have to trust me as an artist, but understand that it's not, if you don't like a voice, don't worry. My voice isn't the definitive voice of that character. That character is just voiced by me in this particular version of it. And all you're doing here is you're making a version that some people prefer audiobooks, some people are blind, and I don't think there's enough emphasis put on visually impaired people and how much of a service it is for audiobooks to be made available for them. But anyway, that's beside the point. You have commissioned a version by an artist. You've said, paint me this picture and make me this film. It's not the definitive version. That definitive version is words in a book, not sound waves on a file. I'm sorry that was rambling.
No, not at all. I think you kind of really picked up on the thing that I was going for as well, and which Phil has sort of mentioned here as well, where he said that DB spot on with his comments before. A relationship with your editor is all about trust and implicitly knowing what you want. I'm gonna maybe throw out a bit of a controversial view here, but I think for all of us, I mean, particularly the authors amongst us, I think there is an element of having to let go of ego when it comes to building a team around you. And I'm sure Ed, you've probably had this experience as well, where there are naturally going to be conflicts in, what your editor thinks versus what you think, what your beta readers think versus what you think. And, they're not always right. And you do have to choose your hills to die on. But there is certainly an element of having to check that ego. DB, is this something? Have you ever had your ego checked, DB? Let's be brutally honest here.
Yeah. So the first time I ever get anything back from a beta or an editor or anybody, I go through a round of kind of, how dare you? How very dare you? Like I've been slapped about with a wet fish, and I kind of go through it all, being completely flabbergasted and sincerely hurt, knowing that then I'll go away and have a cup of tea and then come back and go, right, I need to make this book better. And that's all gone then. And then it's like this, everything that's been said to me, whether I ignore it or listen to it or use it, it's all to make the end product a better thing. But I have to go through that initial round of flabbergast before I can get to that point.
Yeah.
I think just so jump in on that from the editor's perspective. Being an editor is basically having like a sort of a degree in how to give constructive feedback without coming across like a dick. And that's really half the job, because if you're not phrasing it in a way that's going to, and again, in my experience, authors don't really have big egos. They're all very much kind of like really good to work with. I don't really get any pushback, but it's not even correct to think of it as pushback because I'm serving them. So my ideas, they don't have to put into place anything I say. I mean, it would be daft if I spotted a typo and they went, no, I'm going to leave that. But in terms of the developmental stuff or the line editing stuff, that's all advisory. They can just ignore me. They could ignore everything I said if they wanted. It would be a bit daft of them, choosing me if they did that. But when I'm writing a big report, for example, like a developmental edit report, with about plot, characters, etc., half the job in my mind is to phrase that report so they're not reading it going, oh, this is an absolute nightmare, I've got to do all this stuff, and why do they hate my book? I want them to read that going, this editor loves my book. They see so much good stuff in it, and I pointed out so much good stuff, and all the stuff they think should be improved or worked on or built on is coming off that good stuff. So the way I will structure it, for example, is I will start off with like an overview of the things I think worked really well. Like I'm not sort of, trying to like tongue them out or anything. Can I say that?
It's said now. It's canon.
Oh God, that's why you don't invite me on anything. I'm not trying to like lick them. You know what I mean. But I'm
You're
just
repeating it.
I'm being honest about. I'm trying to show them my joy at reading their books, because all the books I did, they're always awesome, and I'm trying to show them that joy, and then I move on to the things in the overview that I think we need to build on, the big things, and then I kind of do a breakdown. You go into more details and chapters, and I always swap between the things which are working really well and the things which can be different, and I want them to read that and realize that I get their book. And that's why the things that I'm suggesting are particularly useful, because it's coming off the things that I like. However, I do always still say I don't really say to the ones who've done loads of books, because they know the deal by now. But if it's a newbie and it's your first book, I always say, when I send it to you, I say, have a read of it. Don't then just put it in the bottom of the sea in Davy Jones' locker for like a week, 2 weeks, because your mind, even if you're the most un-ego person ever, your mind will be going, I can't, like, why is this person saying all this stuff to me? Like, I hate it when I get my, my publishers, my editor sends me my thing. I hate it. I absolutely hate it. I read it and I go, I don't agree with any of this. Why are you criticizing my book? And then I just put it in Davy Jones' locker. Don't know why I'm using that analogy, for like a month. And then I less time than that, a couple of weeks, and I come back to it. I'm like, oh yeah, he was right about everything. Well, most things. So I always say, just like put it away and then come back to it. And your subconscious brain will be during that time will be telling you, calm down, calm down, calm down. Actually, think about this. And then when you come back to it, you'll be more receptive. But if you have a good editor, that won't be too hard, because you'll be getting the joy as well as the constructive stuff.
And I think that's a key part. Kind of bridge that part, and like when we're talking about trusting, like either editors or cover artists or audiobook narrators, is that when you find someone that has the same passion as you do for your project, that allows you just to like let it go. Like, okay, this person wants my book or to be the best that it can be. I can see the passion. I know the work, so it's not really a blow to my ego, and it's kind of easier to just give them the reins a little bit and not hold it so close to your chest. So if you can find someone who's just as I guess as passionate or as excited about your book as you, that I think is probably 9/10 of the battle in terms of like letting go of your ego.
Yeah.
Can I
go on? Sorry, AJ, jump in.
I had a thought on that as well that might be a bit like a counter to that, because for the purpose of this, I'm an audiobook narrator, and I'm in a bit of a weird space. I do write, and I write fiction for a tabletop war game pub, so I'm not really indie. But my editor is someone I grew up reading, and still do read and love. Is a guy called Gav Thorpe. And when I get edits back on my work, I'm like the opposite. I'm like, oh, he's done the work for me. Like, I'm super lazy. So I'm like, oh, he's done the work for me. That's good. Someone else has made my thing better and I don't have to bother. Like, I'm like, I know there are extra rounds of edits to go. And so I'm like, well, he's just basically done it. Like, all I have to do is implement some of it and just slot. He's done the important part of changing the ideas. I've just got to slot it in and then shugle around with the word count, because I have a strict word count for these stories. So that's my take on it, which I just wanted. I know I'm not a writer for this, but I thought it's quite a different viewpoint to have on editing. It allows me to be lazy.
Yeah.
So then I guess a question for you, RJ, then, as like, I guess you could almost think of the author being an editor to your performance. What do you like? How do you react when an author comes back like, that accent is not at all what I wanted, or that's can you do something like this? So
I do this, and then no.
It's true. I can confirm.
So we work that out beforehand. I make sure we work that out beforehand. So I will ask an author to submit. That's awful. It makes me sound like a boss. I'll ask an author to send me like about 50, what they think 15 minutes worth of audio would be, usually about 15 pages or something, 10 pages, depending. And I will, and I'm like, what are the parts you want to hear? What are the parts you want to know what they sound like? What are the really important characters you want to sound like? We will get that sorted before I then invest all that time into doing it and end up with something they don't like. And if there is something where they don't like it, usually, I mean, it never happens, but and that's not me just trying to toot my own trumpet. That's me going, I think authors are just far too polite to say it. And it makes for an awkward interaction, frankly. But if there is something where they don't like it, then I will, depending how things have gone, I'll be like, look, I can't change it at this point because it's not in the budget to change it that much, unfortunately, because the amount of time you put in for a set amount of, hourage, it goes down if your hourage goes up, but your pay rate doesn't increase commensurate with that. And unfortunately, capitalism, and I do this as a full-time job. So, but there have been occasions where, for example, Lee Conley, who wrote the Dead sagas, and I've narrated the first 2 audiobooks of those. He was not happy with a voice that I did, a very creepy, evil voice, like a spirit's kind of voice. And I had basically given him Marilyn Manson's voice. I just activated maximum vocal fry and was really drawing things out. And if you want to sound like Marilyn Manson, all he does is go vocal fry and that's it. And he didn't like that a lot, and he was super polite about it, and he was like, this is so important, please, can we change that? And do you know what? Yeah, I like, because at the end of the day, I want an author to be very happy with what I've done. I'm a bit of a people pleaser, and I want them to be very happy with what I've done. Earlier in the process, before I did kind of character forms, and I was and this is with Holly's book, actually. And I still feel bad about this. I don't know if it slipped my mind or if I was just too into, I think it was a case of I was too into the book to go back and check what we might have said. And I apologize so much. And it's my favorite character, Kosick, and or Kosick, depending on how you want to pronounce it. And Holly wanted, I believe, a Turkish voice originally. And what he got was like Eastern European voice. And so Holly, bless her, said, at the end of it, I didn't really want, that's not what I'd asked for, but I actually really like what you've done with it here. So that is the one occasion where it could have gone absolute tits up, but Holly was, I think, very, very gracious and kind to me and said, no, I like this version too. And I think that comes from a place of also going, well, he's the audiobook guy, and I'm the writer gal, so to speak.
Yeah.
But yes, that's how I take it. I also have a document, like an intro form, a welcome pack. So I say, look, there's no line readings. Okay, you can't go through this and ask me to say things in a different way. And I have worked with a client once, a very minor project. And I have worked with them and won't again. And because they were going, I give people a feedback for a corrections form. And it's like, right, listen, I proof it, but listen to the audiobook. And if you find any problems, because I'm only human, then please note them on this spreadsheet and I will go and check them out. And it's usually if there's been some kind of audio glitch I've missed, or I've said the wrong word or the wrong line, or if I've confused a voice at some point and given someone else's voice for a line. But one time someone was like going, can you extend the gap between these two words? There should be a breath, a dejected breath here. There should be a beh, 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 beh. And I had to just and there was an intermediary between us, and he's the nicest bloke. And I just had to say, no, Like that, you're not the. I was like, again, I'm the director. The director directs the actors. I'm also the actors. So, like, no, you don't give a line reading, even though I specified that. So I will kick it back. But that is just the only case I've had in 7 or 8 years of doing this professionally, full time. And I don't think that'll ever happen again, frankly. So yeah, that's what happens if someone's not happy or turns out not happy.
We've had a couple of comments as well, just in the chat that I just want to throw up. So Mark saying, a few times I've been a beta reader, I've always given constructive criticism and feedback. I'm a reader of stories and have been for nearly 50 years. Mark, beta readers are worth their weight in gold. Absolutely fantastic. Alex has also said, so the more the editor praises your book, the more you need to fix it. I don't know, Ed, do you agree with that?
They've sort of discovered my secret trick. Possibly.
So we're about halfway at this point. So we've talked a little bit about the fact that trust is a massive component of building that team. But let's just say we're all new to building a team. We all want to get out there and start looking for editors and beta readers, proofreaders, cover artists, and audiobook narrators. What are some of the red flags or the green lights that you, in your experience, would look for when you're looking to build your team? I'm going to come to AJ first on this one. Sorry.
Yeah, that's okay. Red flags, because like I haven't done this well. Like I'm the first to say that my author career has very much been trial by fire. And when I've tried something and it's gone, tits up or whatever, I'm like, okay, don't do that again. So if you're a new author watching this, I've made all the mistakes for you. One of the early mistakes is don't put out like an open call for someone on Twitter or Blue Sky or whatever, because then you're just DM is full of bots and AI. And it's just, so that's a huge red flag. If someone comments right away or something like that, it is.
We've all made that mistake.
Yeah. It's just like, oh my goodness. And you're just wrapping your head around and you can't find, like, it feels like you're drowning. But a green flag for me is that they have been in the industry for a bit, and not like more so that they've done like I knew about RJ because he done Holly's books and a few other people's books. I had heard about it. I found my cover artist because he had done a few books in the little small grimdark circle that I'm in as well. So it's like, hey, these are reputable people that I can trust, and I know they do good work because, hey, I can actually go check it out. Not saying that you have to, go with an established person, because sometimes, like my audiobook narrator for my trilogy right now is just starting out, and he's like, I don't have a lot of experience, but I'm willing to take a crack at this, and I think he's done a phenomenal job. But I think those are kind of the green flag. It's kind of like you're a boss at a job. You're looking to hire someone, and you kind of got to suss out the red flag. Like, they have the experience. Do they seem like a good person? Do they seem like a real person when I'm talking to them online? That kind of stuff.
Ed, what about you? I'm interested in your perspective, because I know from my own personal experience that I've had people, say to me in conversations, or I've been given a quote for editing and it's going to cost me this much to have the first paragraph done. And I'm just like, I don't think that's quite right. Do you see a lot of this going on?
Yeah, not all editors are made equal, to say the least. There's essentially a couple of different types. There's the editors who've been doing it for years, and they have a track record of authors, and they got a reputation and they know what they're doing. Then there's the editors who, and this is not me criticizing, because everyone's got to start somewhere, right? Then there's the editors who are just starting out, and they might be really naturally good, but they maybe got less experience, and so maybe that's reflected in the prices. And then there's maybe the more red flag ones, which are ones who maybe they've done a few jobs, but maybe not that well, and maybe they don't necessarily have developed their skill set correctly. And you hear some horror stories, for example. A common one that I get is people come to me, an author, and say, I've already had a proofreader with this book, and that they didn't. There's loads of errors, so they hire me to essentially proofread it again, and they've had to pay twice. And that's a lesson unfortunately some authors learn, and it's not their fault. It's quite hard to know which is which. One of the problems, I think, is that, maybe problems are the wrong word, but a phenomenon is that since COVID, you've had a lot more people wanting to work from home, and a lot more people and often people go, oh, editing sounds cool, I'll do that. And maybe they're doing it part-time while their partner, does a full-time thing. Maybe they have a part-time job and a full-time job. So maybe it's not like their main thing. And they go, well, I'm good at spotting errors and stuff. And that's great. But things like line editing, developmental editing, it takes a while to kind of get your skill set built up on that. So the question that you're asking me really is, well, how on earth does an author work out everything I just said? How do they know which is which? And my honest advice is, don't go into the black holes of, Fiverr or Upwork or anywhere else, where you're like, well, is that a real reference? That sounds like a good price, but have they got experience? Just do copy what the authors you love are doing. So at the end of every book, indie author, trad author, they have acknowledgements, obviously in this case indie, and in those acknowledgements they will thank their editor. So go to all your favorite indie author books, open it out, go to the acknowledgement section and jot down the editor, look them up. Or if you're starting off as an indie author, one of the first things, forget editing, one of the first things that I know all the indie authors I know do is they find their tribe, right? They have a Discord, or they have whatever, it's I guess it's mainly Discords these days, where they join it and they have all these awesome indie authors, and you just say, hey guys, I'm starting out, I need an editor. Do you have any recommendations? And then they'll say, yeah, we've all worked with this guy or something. This year I've got quite a few jobs from the same kind of group of indie authors who I have been recommending me, which is very nice of them. Thank you. So don't make it hard for yourself. Don't take the risk, because it's your money. You don't want to waste it. Just find the proven ones, and either whether it's your tribe on Discord or whether it's looking at it in the acknowledgement section. So that would be my way to avoid the red flags.
DB, anything from you that you've seen in your experience?
I think I'm just going to go back to the relationship, really. I think if you're chatting to somebody online about a potential project, there's the cold, faceless, I don't give a crap what it is, this is how much I charge, or there's, tell me about your book, tell me about what you're trying to achieve in a book. And if you're having that sort of conversation, you've got some buy-in from a professional who you can also check out their credentials, but they're interested in, again, collaborating on what you're trying to do. But one of the sad things about becoming an author is that you do have to fend off millions of scammers who are doing all kinds of weird and wonderful offers. So I think we're getting better at sussing these people out. But I think engage that conversation and find out what their values are, and do they align with your values? Can we collaborate on this project?
RJ, I mean, I don't know if you've got a view on this. I guess for you, it may be a little bit different. Working more in audiobook, it's possibly less red flags and more going back to that idea of authors understanding the medium that you're creating for them. Phil actually asked a kind of a related question in the comments, where he's put, what about the insecure author whose ego is so fragile criticism can hurt? I'm going to open that up to everybody, but I'm going to come to you first, RJ, just because you mentioned the fact that, we had a little bit of back and forth when we were doing the audio for women. And there were things that we, maybe didn't agree on, or that I needed to understand the context better. How do you handle that when that conversation is with somebody who is maybe a little bit more insecure?
Well, firstly, I'm in the middle of a panic attack, and I just want to make sure you are happy with that character's voice.
Yes.
Yes, thank God. Thank God.
This is not like a subtle way of me telling you, that very, very happy.
So I think it's just like, I treat them with respect. I assume that they know that art involves collaboration, and art involves pushback and feedback and stuff like that. And I try to couch it in everything I do, actually, professionally or not, if I've got some negative criticism, negative feedback or something, or there's some confrontation, confrontation is probably the wrong word. That sounds far too epic. If there's some disagreement, I try to put it in like the most fluffy, nice way to understand, I don't want to upset people because I know what it's like to be upset. I hate being upset. And I have depression among other things. And like that can some criticism or something can trigger my depression. I'll get really upset, depressed, it could be anything. So I try, but that doesn't mean people should be not giving me the information I need to know. That's not for everyone else to adjust their behavior. That's my challenge to surmount. And so, but bearing that in mind, I do try to give it in the nicest, fluffiest way possible. And that's not just me saying that in a business sense. That's me doing that because I believe that's how you should just treat people. You should deliver negativity. Obviously there are extreme examples, but we're talking about in the grand scheme of the world, audiobooks and books and any kind of art in the grand scheme of the world is not worth getting very upset about, and hurting people's feelings over. So I do it because I do it in a very fluffy, friendly way, in a way that I think will absolutely minimize any negativity and any bad feelings whatsoever, just because they're not going to take your feedback on board very well if they don't like you, because if you say something that makes them not like you, how likely do you think they are to want to collaborate with you or agree with you? Or being confrontational is not persuasive. Being angry is not a persuasive way, to get what you think is the best thing accomplished. It's efficient to be very, very friendly and nice, and it gets things done, and it achieves the best result. But also, I believe that's just the way you should treat people. You should be very nice, and you should deliver what a lot of people know as the shit sandwich, which is nice, there's your filling of shit for some reason. And then there's your bread there just to make them nice, feel nice at the end. I always try to approach it from a super collaborative point of view. And if someone gets pissy, which they never have, but I would always just try to continue to be as nice and as friendly, as professional as possible. Because at the end of the day, if you've got someone being pissy and an unprofessional clown, and they start like bad mouthing you on the internet, trying to damage your business, you've got receipts. You can show them the emails and be like, look how friendly I was. Look how willing to, look how nicely that I continue, and professionally I continued this conversation. So I just think it's all about being super nice, basically, to cut a long story short. And I think that's the way to kind of push back. And we discuss things and have an argument. And also, and I don't mean that as in dicker, I mean, an argument as in a more, collaborative way. And I have been changed by thoughts, and I have been, I go into it with an open mind, because I also am like, well, I'm not just, these are my thoughts and they're solid and staying here. It's like, I want to go in and go, well, if they make a good point, they make a good point. I take almost a scientific point of view there. If they have presented empirical evidence, then what can I do? But they are right. It would just be absurd to be so dogmatic about it. So yeah, just go in, be super polite, super nice, make people feel good. Try and make them feel good, even if you're delivering something that they probably don't want to hear. And have an open mind that your feedback might actually be wrong, and be willing to be prepared to be brought around to their way of seeing things.
Yeah, and I think at the end of the day, it all comes down to collaboration. Really, I think that's what you're saying. And so to jump in front there, but you will now forever be known as RJ Fluffy Feedback Bayley. I'm just gonna let you know that now. Sorry, Ed, were you going to say something?
About 5 times there. I like it. It was fluffy TED talk. No, I was just going to kind of just sort of back RJ up. I've never, in like 10 years of editing, I've never come across someone who's kind of taken my feedback badly. I think as authors, we like to give ourselves a hard time, saying, "Oh, but, we're all fragile and everything." But I think we're tougher than we give ourselves credit for. And in terms of like, frankly, dickheads, I've never had an author who was acted in my towards my feedback in a dickhead way. And it's my theory that authors are essentially better people than other segments of society. So if I've been working with investment bankers for 10 years, like every day I deal with a dickhead, right? Every single day, estate agents, only kidding. Insert whichever sector you hate. But authors, for various, sociological and creative reasons, tend to be quite more introverted and quite so receptive. I've never had anyone take it badly, and I don't think I ever will. Fingers crossed. So I don't really think it's a problem, actually.
Yeah, like just to build on that, as an insecure author whose ego is very fragile, that criticism can hurt it. I think one thing that's helped me is that if it's negative feedback, it helps. Like I know with Holly, when she beta read my last book, there were some moments where I was like, I got stung my heart. Or I think David Walters from FanFi Addict, he did a review of one of my books, and it was not a great review. He kind of trashed it a little bit and hurt, but I knew it wasn't being malicious. I think that was the big thing, is that these people are giving me feedback, and they're meaning to do well. They're pointing out things that, like, okay, these are problems. And that didn't really bother me. It bothered me a little bit, I guess I should say. But then, and I was like, what if someone just trashes on it? What if someone, like Ed said, is a dick? Well, I had one of those reviews come in, and it was a dick review. And like for that, I was like, screw that guy. I don't give a shit what he thinks. So like, it's funny that like the people who are malicious, for me at least, didn't affect me at all. Didn't affect my ego. But it was the ones that I knew cared that it hurt, because it felt like, okay, I didn't do a good job. But then like, I think it was Ed that said, you just put in Davy Jones' locker for like a week. You come back to it like, okay, the emotions are down. I can deal with this now. Let me process and build off what they're doing. Because these people are trying to help me. They care about me. They're kind people. They're not the dicks of the world.
I'm excited. I've made Davy Jones' locker a thing now.
You have. I would just like to say for the audience watching as well that me and AJ, we are cool now. We've worked through our issues. It's all good. But actually, do you know what? This sort of touches on something that I wanted to raise just as our last point, because we're sort of coming into the last section now of this conversation. Just going to quickly say a quick shout out to JCM Byrne as well, who's in the audience. Nice to see you, JCM. Joe was actually on one of our panels earlier this week, if you want to go and check that out. But to wrap us up, let's talk a little bit about, do we think that maybe authors anticipate negative experiences? Because we've all talked about what do you do if you get a negative feedback or a criticism, but then we've also, most of us, said we haven't really had that many experiences of that. So do we have a tendency to anticipate that people will hate our work, and does that affect how we work with our editors, our audiobook narrators? DB, what's your take?
I think writing a book is such, it's different time periods for different people, but at the end of the day, you commit to something for multiple years. Sometimes you write every single word in that book. It's a long process where lots of emotion, lots of structure, lots of technicality, hopefully lots of ingredients go into that incredible cake. So if you weren't cautious that somebody was going to sort of eat a little bit of it and spit it out, there'd be something pretty wrong with you. I think it's not like like a great snooker shot. It's over in seconds and check out how good I am. This could be 10 years of pouring yourself onto a page. So yeah, putting it out there is pretty terrifying.
Yeah, and I just to build off that, I read a quote once, and I think authors will read our work, or artists in general will look at our work and will hate it, and in some extent, because it's not like who we like. Like for me, I'm a big fan of Sapkowski, who wrote the Witcher books. I'm a big fan of Tolkien. I'm a big fan of Dostoevsky and Nietzsche. And so I read my stuff. I'm like, man, this is dog shit compared to those guys. Like, this is fucking bad. And so you're just like, okay, I remember when I released Oathbreaker, I was like, okay, it's out there. If people are going to hate it because it's nowhere near who I like. I'm not at that level. And then people, for the most part, people came back like, this is a good book. We like this book. And you're never going to be, and I think there's a realization in our path as artists and authors is that you're never going to be like your idols, because you're your own distinct person. You are going to make your own art that is completely separate from everything else. Yes, there's flavors, and yes, there's splashes. And then, well, once you realize that that's not a bad thing, that you're having a distinct voice, that that's actually a huge benefit, then I think that fear of putting something out there and that anticipation and bracing for negative feedback goes away a little bit, because no one wants, I know some people say, I want another version of Tolkien. No one wants another version of Tolkien, because there's Tolkien for that. They want something akin to that, but still different and unique enough that they can still enjoy.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
I think, being an author and editor at the same time for me has been really useful, because it means I have an insight into, like what AJ was saying, author imposter syndrome, which is very real and very horrible. I had it with my first book, which came out in January. Until about a month ago, 2 months ago, I couldn't even look at that book on my shelf. I hated it so much. I hated even talking about it. Everyone was like, trying to talk to me about it. I didn't want to talk about it. I thought it was awful, absolute dog shit. And it's only in the last couple of months, it's just kind of gone away a bit. And I picked it up last month, and I read it, and I was like, you know what? This isn't as shit as I thought. This is okay. It's not great, but it's okay. And the second book's coming out. It's much better. So now I'm kind of feeling more positive. And so almost not all authors, but so many authors I work with are going through the same thing. And because I've felt it myself, I understand that. But I think going back to what I said earlier about how the editors should communicate to the author, that's, I think, part of the responsibility. Because one of the ways that I got over my horrific imposter syndrome this year was that I went back and read some of the nice things people said about my book from people I trust. Complete strangers doesn't really work for me, but if I kind of know them, or I've read some of their other stuff, and then I trust them and they're reading good, so I just kept reading it, and it slowly whittled it away. And so that's kind of part of the editor's job, I think, is to sort of not lie, not kind of blow smoke up there, but just reassure them that they are writing good stuff, and that this is the whole part of the process, and we can make it better. So I think I've got a kind of unique psychological insight into that horrific hellscape that is author imposter syndrome.
Yeah. You get to enjoy it from both sides, Ed. This is the great benefit of what you do.
Both sides of hell, yeah.
Yeah.
All 7 circles of hell. Yeah, is it 7? Yeah,
beautiful.
Yeah.
Also, going back to that one question about red flags, especially with editors or whatever, if they come back and they say, this is amazing, there's nothing wrong with your book, I think that's a big red flag, because I don't know who said it, like, your first draft's always shit. There's always problems. You always need to fix it. And your second draft will be shit, and your third draft will be shit. Probably by 4th or 5th, you kind of got it down pat, as good as it'll be.
Yeah. I'm kind of aware now that we are sort of getting into the last couple of minutes of this. And interestingly, I think this entire discussion can be encapsulated by something a certain somebody known by the name of Fraser Armitage, don't know if any of you have ever heard of him, said to me earlier, because we were discussing this panel coming up, and Fraser said to me that he loves it when people challenge him about his work, because when you have people that challenge you and critique you in that constructive way, and they want to input, what happens is you end up with the best thing it could possibly be, as opposed to the best thing that you think it could possibly be. And those are two very different things. sadly, we are kind of getting to the point where we do need to wrap up. As much as I could talk about this for absolutely hours with all you guys, I want to give you all a chance to plug and promote your work. So let's do a quick whiz round. Let's start with DB. Where can people find you and your books?
You can find me on dbrookbooks.com and pretty much all the socials. I'm still clinging onto Twitter, Blue Sky, Instagram. I'm everywhere. Come and find me. And please do buy my latest book, Residuum, which is my beginning of a space opera, shall we say. It's a novella. It will become a widespread space opera when there's a few more books in the series, but that's the intro, and you will love it. It's wonderful.
Lovely. And if you have enjoyed benefiting from DB's wisdom, we will be having some more of it because you're going to be joining us tomorrow for our crossover panel with some of the other beardsmen of the book Apocalypse. So we look forward to that. Yeah, RJ, where can people find you?
I have a link tree which is, they should have thought about this better. It's link.ee/RJ Bayley. But if you put in Linktree RJ Bayley, you'll find all my links there. I'm RJ Bayley on Instagram, where I'm quite active. I'm RJ Bayley, voice actor, audiobook narrator, and writer. I think on Facebook, you'll find me if you put that in. I'm on Blue Sky as RJ Bayley. And I think that's everything. And I have a website, rjbayley.com, which is in desperate need of updating. So you're better off going through the link tree on my socials.
Fabulous. AJ, what about you?
Yeah, similar to DB. I'm on all like the social media, clinging to Twitter, but not really scrolling it. I have my website, www.ajrettger.com. There you can get books and signed copies and hopefully some other fun stuff in the near future. And then like if you can't get a hold, I'm not very active on social media, much to the marketing chagrin and my wallet's chagrin. But if you need to get in touch with me, you want to ask me a question or pick my brain about anything on this panel or anything else book related or anything really, because I like talking, feel free to DM me. You can just message me and I will answer that, because that's a lot easier for me to answer than trying to scroll through comments and mentions or whatever. But yeah.
Fantastic. And Ed, what about you?
For once, I've remembered to get a copy of my book. Light 4, out now. Fancy with vampires and werewolves and sorcerers. It's all right. I hate it a little less, as I've just said. And I'm on Blue Sky, Threads, Instagram, and TikTok as Ed Crocker Books, and you can find my link tree connected to all that. I don't really talk about my books, really. I should do that more. I'm more like a book reviewer and a bookstagrammer. I talk about other people's books, basically, rather than my own. So if you're looking for info about my books, you're probably going to be quite disappointed. But I should get better at that. Yeah.
Talking about other people's books rather than their own, that's pretty much the brand for every author that's out there. My books, if you're interested, are available on Amazon. I write as H.L. Tinsley, We Men of Ash and Shadow, The Hand That Cast the Bone, The Vanguard Chronicles, and also the standalone The Hallows. We do have lots going on this weekend on Spotlight Indie with the big weekend. We have another live panel coming up at 9:00 where we will be talking about building your platform. It's all about how to engage with the indie community and get involved with all the wonderful people in it. I'd like to thank all of my guests one more time for joining us and dispensing all their wisdom. Thank you to the people in the chat who have joined in and all your comments. And as they say in the A-Team, Alpha Mike Foxtrot. Adios, my friends. See you later.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye, guys.